Hello, I'm the Explosion, but you can call me Wes or Jin for simplicity's sake, and this is a new series I'm starting called The Backlog. Now, in case you didn't know, just a few days ago was 2020. We have just started 2021. I have noticed at the beginning of this year that I have 142 games on my backlog. Last year, I think I started with 10 or 20 less than that, so that means I have purchased more games this year than I have beaten, and believe me, I have beaten a significant number. This year, I'd like to try and get that number down to less than 100. Typically, I'm not too big on resolutions, but calendar years seem like a good way to add a start and finish to a goal. Plus, I might get some extra views by putting resolution in the tag, especially right at the beginning of the year. So, let's take a look at what we're dealing with.
So here's the first screen of my list. Hopefully people can read it without too much trouble. Now then, in case it's not obvious, I have all of them divided up by what platform they're on. And to just the right of each title is the average playtime required. I got these numbers off of howlongtobeat.com, which is kind of an aggregate where people type in their playtimes for any specific game and it just kind of averages it together to give you a baseline for how long it's going to take. When we're trying to knock so many of these games out, sometimes it's good to know how much of a time investment we're actually looking at, you know? Oh, and the games highlighted in yellow are games that I've at least begun to play. I put them aside either due to time constraints or personal reasons or just plain frustration, but we can go over some of that some other time. Right now, you just need to know that I at least have my foot in the door for those titles. Also worth noting is below some of these shorter lists, I have 3 smaller lists. The multi one is a list where I notate just if there's a series that I have multiple games in the works for, how many I have in each. That might help me prioritize a little bit. That might also maybe help me space them out so I don't, totally get burnt out on just one game series in particular. The middle one, total, that's the really helpful one. That one shows how many games I have for each platform that I specifically need to beat. The clear winner here is, surprisingly, not Steam, which only has 10, but Switch, which has 35. I have such a huge backlog on frickin' Switch. Holy my cow. The last list hiding down there is the for funsies. This is a list of games that I don't need to beat, that I have already played them to the point where I'm satisfied, but maybe I want to do some more with it, either for fun or just to continue to unlock stuff because I enjoy it. Hence the for funsies tag. Now here's the PlayStation section of my list. Obviously not nearly as bulky as my Nintendo section, but still pretty significant, especially the PS4. There is also the Steam list there, which is only 10 games. I should honestly knock it out. I don't know. And tacked on to the very end of the spreadsheet is the master list. It contains every game that was in every other column. The difference here is that they are arranged not by console, but by how long it'll take to beat. That way I can kind of plan and, utilize my time the best way I can think possible. The significant things to notate here are at the bottom of the list, I have 2 games that I cannot find an average playtime for. So I might want to knock those out pretty early so that way it doesn't throw a wrench in my plans any other time down the line. After that, it's worth notating that the shortest game I have is Sonic and the Black Knight. From what I hear, not a terrific game, but it's going to be the easiest one to knock out. There are also a significant number of games that are less than 10 hours, which means that's an easy under a week game for us to finish just to get it knocked off the list. Now, skipping right to the end, we see we have a significant number of games at around the 40-hour mark. Those are going to be JRPGs, and they're going to be a significant time commitment. But if we play them on the side while still trying to concentrate on some of the more reasonably, length games, it shouldn't be too bad to knock them out. If we look at the very end, though, we see the big boy of the list, Persona 5, which comes in at an average of 95 hours to beat. This one will be the crown jewel of the list, and I will take significant pleasure of being able to take it off when I beat it. I'm gonna hope that it's this year, but if it's not, I'm not gonna feel horrible as long as I meet the rest of my goal. Now, back to our start screen to clarify a few rules of this list. The big one is what it means to actually knock a game off of this list. Pretty much, we take it off when I'm finished with the game. Sounds pretty obvious, but to clarify, that does not necessarily mean that I finish the game. If I get tired or frustrated with the game, or feel that it's just not worth the effort to finish, it comes off the list. For example, last year, I had a Billy and Mandy game, oddly enough. It was an arena brawler. It was supposed to only take about an hour to beat, which I suppose was supposed to be the story mode, which played kind of like an arcade mode. I played the first match. It was 2-on-1 in my favor, but the controls were unintuitive. It did not feel great to play, and I was just running into things, and I got my butt kicked. I tried playing the match again, got frustrated very early on, and just decided I was done, so it came off the list. That's right, a game that would only take an average of 1 hour to beat, and I gave up on it because it sucked that hard. On the other end of the spectrum are games that I finish but do not yet feel satisfied with. An example for that would be Pokemon. Last year when Sword and Shield came out, I got Sword. I played through the game and finished it, but afterwards, wanted to play the post-game. Did that. Then even after that, I didn't feel satisfied until I had completed my Galar Dex and got the Shiny Charm. So games like that, despite being done a significant amount of time beforehand, would not be taken off the list until I felt I was done with it. Also coming up from time to time is this section of the list. It has things like books and TV shows I'm watching, along with some personal goals I have. While it will not be the main focus of this series, I might bring it up time to time when I get something accomplished on it. Also, if you see at the end, it shows what kind of equipment I'm using to record this series. If anybody has any better suggestions, I am very open to it. Please.
Now, let's start with some positive news. On January 1st, I picked a game and I beat it from beginning to end. That's right, I'm talking about Mario and Sonic at the 2020 Games.
Oh hey, some actual gameplay. Bet you didn't know we did that here. So, Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games Tokyo 2020. Is that the full title? Yeah, it is. It says it on the spine of the frickin' box jacket. I was vaguely interested in this game. I played a few other in the series, and they're typically a good time kill, and I could get this sucker half off for Black Friday, so that's the motivation that I needed. So, for what I believe is the first for this series, there is a story mode, which you need to play through in order to unlock all the special characters, which, disappointingly enough, can only be used in the event that you unlock them in, such as Zavok here in boxing. Now, I'm always a big proponent for stories in video games, whether it be huge sprawling epics like in the Tales series, a bunch of interconnected stories that each have their own charm and let you get to know the world you're in, like in Majora's Mask, or just simple flavor text in like an instruction booklet. Dr. Wily stole the robots and now you gotta beat the robots so that they don't cause chaos and stuff. All that said, this game made me rethink that. It made me rethink it very hard. The basic premise is, all the Sonic and Mario characters are there at the Olympic Games to play the Olympic Games because they're the greatest athletes that ever lived or whatever, and Sega likes money. Hey, I like money too. Nothing wrong with it. But in this case, Eggman and Bowser have teamed up to get rid of Sonic and Mario. Big surprise. Eggman has invented a video game, and Bowser has infused it with the magic of Magic Koopa to make it able to suck in whoever plays it. But through an accident that is, let's face it, mostly Luigi's fault, Mario and Sonic get sucked into the game as intended, but so do Toad, Eggman, and Bowser. The only way to get out of the game is to collect gold medals and use them at the Olympic Flame. On the outside world, you also have the other characters doing various tasks to try and help them get out of games as well, such as also collecting gold medals or charging a battery so that the game doesn't die and kill everybody that's inside of it. Now, this leads to two modes. The modern graphic 3D, which is the primary selling point of the game, and also the 2D retro style games, which has Nintendo graphics for Mario and Sega graphics for the Sonic characters. Now, as far as I know, this is the only way to unlock a lot of things, such as special mini-games that aren't actual Olympic events, such as climbing Tokyo Tower with springs and spikes. Don't ask. And also unlocking the bonus characters. And let me tell you, this was a slog. Very early on, I went to GameFAQs in order to look up a list of unlockables to make sure I didn't miss anything. And while I was there, I was fortunate enough to see a topic that discussed how many chapters were in the story mode. There were 20. Let me tell you, there were several times that was all that got me through this game, knowing how many more things, how many more chapters, approximately how far I was into the story before my torture would end. There are so many points where the game wastes your time. The big one being cutscenes. The cutscenes aren't really interesting. You know that thing that I was said earlier about Dr. Wily stealing the robots? Just a very basic plot? Imagine that. Just the very thin premise towards we're at the Olympic Games and Mario and Sonic are in a video game and we're trying to rescue them, but we need to play sports to do it. Dragged out over and over again with a little bit of flavor text. Not super interesting, but that's fine. However, these scenes in most cases last longer than the actual games themselves. Each chapter, I would say, typically had about 2 games you needed to play, right? And a lot of the games, they would take 30 seconds to a minute to complete. The cutscenes themselves, though, each chapter, I say, would take at least 5 minutes. There were also points where the game would just straight up waste your time. At one point, I needed to find somebody, I believe it was Eggman Nega of all frickin' people, and I go to the world map, which there's 2 world maps, one for retro style and one for modern style. So I go to the icon on the map that has an exclamation point. I go in and I talk to the Toad with the exclamation point over his head, and he says, "Oh, you're looking for someone? You should talk to the Omochao at Japan Station, Tokyo Station, one of the stations in the area. He knows where everybody's at." Okay, I exit to the map. I go to the station. I find the Omochao in question, and he says, "Eggman Nega, he's at the karate dojo, fighting karate things." So I go back to the world map, and then I go and fight Eggman Nega in karate. There were 2 stops where the only point was to go in and to talk to somebody only to get redirected. If that is not a blatant disrespect of the player's time, then I don't know what is. Holy cow, Sega, why did you do this? It was probably because, they put so much effort into actually making the places in Tokyo recreated in the game that they wanted to show them off. And maybe these were two places that, I don't know, I don't remember if I visited them again, but maybe this was the only chance they had to show off what they did in-game. Best guess, though. The other issue were the games themselves, which varied greatly in complication. Some of them were as simple as hold a button in the beginning and press A as quickly as possible so that you go as fast as possible. Some of them switched up a little bit and you did the same thing and then you had to hit B to jump. And others were pretty much the minigame equivalent of pat your head while rubbing your tummy and jumping up and down on one leg. It took so much concentration. I don't know, maybe I'm just an idiot, but some of them, it felt like I was scratching my head and concentrating way too much just to get the basic motions down. But I don't know, maybe it was also because I played so damn many of these games that I had about a dozen different control schematics floating through my frickin' head. But it's all good, because end of the day, got to the credits, feel satisfied with what I got to play through, and got to see Peach's navel, and got to play as Blaze the Cat. Got rid of Styx the Badger for whatever damn reason. Don't know why. We trying to forget that she ever happened or something? So while I wouldn't recommend the story mode just for funsies, at the end of the day, it might be fun to bring out and just play casually with a few other people. And I'll have all the other characters unlocked, specifically for the events that they're apparently good at.
So thanks for watching. I'll be trying to put these suckers out about once a week. Hopefully they'll be between 10 and 20 minutes long, and even if I don't beat a game, I should at least have some updates for something. I won't be sitting on my laurels. So if you feel like it, stick around and maybe I'll see you next time.
So, this is an outro for links. Subscribe. Did I say that already? No? Well, you don't have to. We're only one video in. It might be a little early for a commitment, but hey, maybe we'll see each other again. Let me know if you have a large backlog yourself there, bud.